Welcome to We Talking About Sports, where it's UFC Fight Weekend, UFC 309, Jones versus Miocic, the return of two legends. Roland, are you excited to watch this fight?
Yeah, super excited. What's up, everybody? Glad to be back on talking about some UFC. Justin, UFC 309. This is a fight that we've been waiting on for it seems like a few years now. It's been delayed because of injuries. It's finally here. I know there was talks of maybe scheduling other fights while we've been waiting for this, while one is healthy and the other's coming off of an injury. But we're finally here. We're getting the fight, and yeah, I'm excited and excited to chop it up here with you.
I'm excited about the regular start time this weekend, Roland. No more international fights where you have to be up at 9 a.m. to start the card. We're going to see the 9 p.m. standard start time for us. So I'm excited about that. It's in New York. I think Jon Jones at this point probably has the most headliners in Madison Square Garden for UFC at this point. Seems like he's always fighting in New York now.
Yeah, Madison Square Garden. A couple of things going on with this card, right? Along with the being normal start time. I think they're going back to the regular gloves. I know there was some talk about that throughout a media day. And there's one other thing that I could have sworn that I saw, but I know the gloves was the big thing that people were talking about earlier this week. So yeah, man, this should be an exciting card. It's always exciting when you go into Madison Square Garden, into the Mecca.
The Mecca of sports right there. Let's go to a little bit of since we've been gone. Roland, the last card has came. It's 308. And our boy, I know we were on opposite sides. You had Max. I said I have to take myself off the Max train here. Ilia Topuria did it to him in the third round. Max was doing pretty good, for 2.5 rounds up until the knockout, man. I know this one's going to be hard to talk about, but where does Max go now? What happens with Max?
Yeah, man, it was tough to watching that. To answer your question, I think he's already said that he's going to go up to lightweight, so he's going up to 155 permanently. He's done with featherweight, done with 145, so maybe he retains some of that power that he flashed against Justin Gaethje in that BMF title. So maybe he has a BMF title fight lined up at 155. I know there's a lot of exciting things that you can do with Max Holloway. Already a legend in the game at 32 years old. So shout out to him. To your point, he was doing good. Arguably won the first round, second round, Ilia was getting warmed up, and then with a sniper like that, I mean, it's just a matter of time. He's circling his prey. He's gonna get his guy, and he put Max out. It was sad to see him get put out. So I've never
seen it before.
Yeah, never seen it before. So. I am a little curious to see how Max responds to his next big shot. With a guy with the granite chin like that for so long, to see him go out like that, you start to wonder: is this maybe the beginning of the end of that chin? Hope not. Maybe he starts to fight smarter, but Max he only fights one way, so we'll see where he goes from here. But excited to see him at 155 for sure.
I like his prospects at 155 just because we've seen him against the killer at 155, Gaethje, and he knocked him out and he won every round doing so. So I do like that step up for him. I think he can handle himself very well. And for Ilia, I mean, it's got to be Diego Lopez, right? That's what's probably next for him.
Yeah, Diego Lopez, or he can always go back to that Volkanovski fight, and I think that's probably where he's going to go back. I mean, I think there's enough intrigue there. I know we talked about it when we were, briefing everybody on the Holloway and Topuria fight, but Volkanovski arguably, kind of rushed back for that first fight against Ilia to make that championship fight. They're at featherweight, coming off that knockout to Islam. When he was going for that champ status. So I like that Volkanovski and Topuria fight. I think you can sell that, a rematch. Not Topuria's, but Volkanovski's kind of his last stand, trying to get that gold and reclaim his belt. So I think you can sell that probably before the Diego Lopez fight, in my opinion. But I can see both sides of it. I think Volkanovski would put up a better fight than I think Diego Lopez would at this stages in their career. A fully healthy Volkanovski, coming into fight night 100%, I think he puts up a better fight than Diego Lopez.
Volkanovski's the bigger name than Diego Lopez, and if they really are serious about going to Madrid and selling out the Bernabeu, I think you have to go Volkanovski next and doing it like that. If you do it with Lopez, I don't think you sell out a soccer stadium the same way.
Yeah, but I mean, Lopez is another guy. He's on his way. So a lot of seen fights at 145 and 155. A lot of names heating up for sure.
Let's move over to the co-main where Hamzat showed that there was complete levels in the ground game against Robert Whitaker. I mean, one round, it didn't take long, maybe 2 minutes. And if we all saw the photo, he put that boy's teeth in the back of his throat. I mean, completely broke his jaw. Did you think at any way that, you know what, we know what Hamzat's ground game is? Did you think, but this is Robert Whitaker? Could it go that way for him at all? Did you expect this at all?
Man, there was an inkling of me, and the only reason why I say that, and I don't want to act like I'm the smartest guy because I did pick Whitaker. I thought he was going to win. I thought he was going to
Same.
show that there's levels in the fight game in general. But, I did see some people, tweeting about how DDP kind of had his way and was able to take Whitaker down with relative ease at times throughout their fight. Ended up putting Whitaker out. And I mean, Hamzat was just kind of, toying with his food the whole time. No offense to Whitaker, legend of the game. And, Hamzat, yeah, the guy, every time he steps inside the octagon, you absolutely have to watch. And he flashes
Must
something
watch.
new. I mean, like you said, he pushed somebody's teeth back. I mean, granted, Whitaker did say that he's had that injury or he's had something wrong with his lower teeth since he was younger. But still, I mean, to exhibit that kind of strength and completely dislodge somebody's
That's
teeth,
bear strength, bro.
that's ridiculous. So I'm excited to see what Hamzat can do. I definitely would not be mad at him getting the next title shot over Strickland, who's become quite the Karen online, if you ask me.
Yeah. And we also got a news for Tyson versus Paul this Friday. We'll talk about it towards the end, but that's just a heads up. Let's get into the first fight, the third fight of the night, or the third main fight of the night. Little tell of the tape here. We got Bo Nickel, undefeated 6-0. We know his pedigree going up against Paul Craig. 8 years the younger is Bo Nickel. He's got 2 inches. He's 2 inches shorter. Both 185, 76-inch reach, Roland. I'm going to show you Bo Nickel's last 5 fights. The kid is in form. I mean,
Yeah.
hasn't lost a fight. Granted, 2 of these fights were in Dana White's Contender Series. What do you think about Bo Nickel's form? You're seeing a lot of submission, and there's a knockout there. What do you think?
Not mad at it. Bo Nickel's one of those guys. He has that pedigree. Penn State. He's one of those guys that's. I mean, to me, I would say an extreme or a top-notch athlete in the UFC. Like he exhibits, that quick twitch. He's explosive. He can jump on a guy. Like we touched on with the wrestling, he can do it all. He can sub you. And he's flashed a little bit of dynamite in the hands when he's had the chance to, kind of get in there and strike with somebody, knowing that he's going in there for the takedown. So they're already going in, dropping their hands and, kind of getting ready to, kind of supplant that takedown attempt. So he's flashed it all. Definitely still. I mean, we know that he's better than a prospect, right? But the way that they've been building it up, his age, he's still on the cusp of he's jumping out of that prospect, I think, stage of his career. And I mean, quite frankly, he said that that's what he's wanted for his career. He necessarily hasn't wanted to jump up to those big names. Paul Craig, arguably the biggest name that he has fought to date. Probably not in the best form, as you'll talk about here, but yeah, excited for this one.
Yeah, and Paul Craig's 4-1, 4 losses, 1 win. Nikita Krylov, a submission win was his last. And Paul Craig, he's more of a submission artist. He got knocked out by Johnny Walker. I mean, if you're getting knocked out by Johnny Walker, your form's not good. Chao Barao knocked him out as well. Volkan Ozdemir, a knockout artist, he was able to take him to a decision in which he lost. He lost all 3 rounds in that fight as well. Not the best guy in form. He does seem motivated. He seems like he wants to prove himself one last time. And a lot of people want to know, is Bo Nickel for real? Any chance Paul Bearju Craig can kind of fraud check Bo Nickel one time and say, you know what? You're still just a prospect. You're not the blue chipper you believe you are. Any chance he grabs a submission? Because guess what? Both guys, they might take it to the floor at some point. And this guy, he's a BJJ artist. Any chance he gets a sub, catches a heel, catches a leg?
Yeah, Paul Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, he's one of those guys that's not afraid to kind of just troll and just lay on his back and just kind of invite the guy to come down there with him. So definitely, not afraid to to get the fight to where he needs it to be by any means. But I think this line is correct. Correct. I mean, I might be wrong, but to answer your question, I think he can fraud check him for maybe about a round, because I do think that he has enough pedigree. Paul Craig does, on the ground himself, to kind of, hold his own a little bit. But I still think Bo Nickel, he's a different type of athlete. I think he's on that, kind of that brute force level of athlete that's just going to be able to get a guy where he wants him. He's going to be able to get the position that he wants in the cage, whether that be wrestling. And I think, he might, flash a little bit of muscle here and flex a little bit and, take him out on the ground. Because, like you said, Paul Craig is a ground specialist himself. But I mean, Bo Nickel, I mean, that's his calling card too. And, bulldozing guys.
Champion, national title holder.
On the wrestling. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Bo Nickel submits Paul Craig or something like that, or just, I would like to see some ground and pound. I don't know if he has that in his game, that type of wrestling, but I would like to see that from him. Some sort of aggression on the ground.
And what's funny about Bo Nickel is he has all the credentials for wrestling in the amateur space, but in UFC, I think he's only registered one takedown this whole career. He's got 5 fights in the UFC with 1 takedown. Granted, a lot of it has come because it's not been a necessity for him. He hasn't been checked at all. His stand-up has been better than the guys he's fought. Yeah. And like you mentioned, everyone's so afraid of that takedown that they come in worried and hands down, and he's taking advantage of it. This is a veteran, and I like what you said. 1 round, I can see that happening where Paul Craig maybe gets the better of him, but then Bo Nickel cruises and shows that minus 1250 is valid.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we haven't talked much about his striking prowess, Bo Nickel, but he's probably a better striker than Paul Craig is. I mean, Paul Craig is not a striker, has not shown much improvement, I don't think, in that game, or that part of his game at age 36 here, as we see on the tail of the tape. So I think this one's lined properly. It's probably too steep to include like in any parlays, so you might want to look at Bo Nickel by finish or something like that inside the distance. If you think he's going to put him out, or maybe unanimous decision. If we can go back to his final 5, has he even seen the cards in his career?
No, sub and knockout.
Okay. Yeah, so that's interesting. I wonder if not Bo Nickel, if Paul Craig can, take him into deeper waters. That's the other thing with Bo Nichols. When are we going to see that out of him?
Yeah, and eventually one day down the line, I want to see Bo Nickel and Hamza. I want to see the American wrestling versus the Russian wrestling at least once.
Yeah, and they talked about it, so they're definitely might be in each other's.
It'll be years down the line knowing Bo Nickel, because this guy is taking the slow ride up. He really doesn't care about putting the rocket on his back just yet.
Yeah.
All right, this is the fight. This is the rematch. Probably some people could say this may be the people's main event here, Roland. The return of Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira has been active. We know Michael Chandler has been waiting on Conor McGregor for quite some time. I don't think about 2 years he's been out of the octagon.
Poor guy.
Waiting on that fight that never materialized. And it seems like Conor's moved on as well. I think he's willing to fight other people besides Michael Chandler at this point.
Or just show with BKFC.
The last time we saw these guys, it was a war where Oliveira did take Chandler's back. Chandler was able to escape it. He rocked Oliveira at one point. Could have had the finish, did not get the finish, when Oliveira ends up striking and coming back and knocking him out. Let's look at Oliveira's tail of the tape, Roland. He's got dubs. That one loss in blue, that was a championship fight. That's where he loses his belt, comes back, knocks out Benil Dariush, and then we all know Shortgate. He had Sarukian in a guillotine. Sarukian's shorts start coming off, and he was losing grip, and he doesn't get the choke because of it. But other than that, other than the Islam Makhachev fight, this guy was carrying the UFC at one point on his back, Roland. He was active and winning.
Yeah, shout out Ice Spice, shout out to Bronx. Bronx. You got to give his flowers to your credit, Justin. He is the champ for all intents and purposes. He is a guy that when he's fighting, people love to watch him. He has a very inviting fighting style. He's able to do it across the board. He's able to sub you, as you can see here, and most recently, I feel like later in his career has flashed that he has some power in his hands, as he's put out some guys later on in his career. So yeah, shout out to Dubronx. Got to give him props. This is going to be an interesting fight. I rewatched that Arman fight. I do give credence to what you said, Justin, with the whole short gate. But that was a good back and forth fight between him and Arman. I just think Arman was just he's a different athletic beast. I think kind of hard to hold down, and he
Yeah,
was able to have his ways with Charles, but different matchup here with
he's a
Michael
younger
Iron
bull.
Chandler.
I mean,
Yeah, for
that's what
sure.
he is.
Yeah.
And then we'll go to Michael Iron Chandler here. You know him. He's not the winning guy. He puts fight IQ to the side, and he'll let it throw. He lost to Gaethje, he's lost to Poirier, and lost to Charles Oliveira. Kind of the who's who of the lightweight division, at the time. His win over Dan Hooker and his, crazy knockout, memorable knockout kick over Tony Ferguson. But when it comes to the names in the division, he has not been able to get a win at all. And I do fear for him, Roland, that he's going to get into a shoot again and kind of throw IQ to the side and try to knock out Do Bronx once again. What do you think for him? What's his path to victory?
Oh man, the path to victory is just exploding on DeBronk's paws and just enforcing his will on him. Similar to how he put Dan Hooker out, and similar to what he was trying to do. If you rewatch that first fight, that whole first round is a just different little burst from Michael Chandler trying to get his game off on DeBronx, and just really having Charles Oliveira on his back foot, just trying to pick his time, and the fight transgressed, and they were went different places. But yeah, that's his path to victory, is really just catching him and knocking him out, getting him on his back. He's a really aggressive when it comes to his takedowns. He's not afraid to shoot for a takedown, get top position, and enforce his ground and pound. He's really aggressive in that regard. Don't know if he necessarily wants to do that with a guy like DeBronx, who I think he is comfortable staying on his back, and I think that's maybe where he can also win, is if Charles maybe gets comfortable on his back. If he does shoot for a takedown and is able to hold him, Charles has shown that he can get comfortable, lose a round there. You go to the second round, who knows what happens there? You can go into round 3 up 2-0 if you game plan right. But as you said, this game plan and Michael Chandler, those two words are, it's not synonymous with one another, or those two names, excuse me. So I don't know if he's gonna be able to put together a game plan to take out Oliveira. But the one thing I will say about this record, correct me if I'm wrong, the 3 losses, he's had each of those guys dead to rights at some point in those fights, right?
Maybe just not Poirier.
Where you thought that he might have won that fight. You're like, oh shit, Chandler's about to put him out. And then just something goes wrong. So his UFC career can very easily be a little bit different.
The other way.
Had some things broke his way. I will say that to give him some bail. But who do I think is going to win this fight? I do think DeBronx is going to put him out, and I would like to say that he's going to take him out by submission. I don't know if I'll be right there, but I like DeBronx to win this fight.
Let's say DeBronx wins. What do you do from there? Because it seems like Islam and Sarukian's lined up, and where does DeBronx go from there?
Man, DeBronx, I would like to see him fight Holloway. I think that's a good entry fight for Holloway into the lightweight division.
That's a dream fight.
You could also throw the BMF thing on there, depending how this fight goes.
I think that's what you should do, Roland.
If Oliveira puts him out in exciting fashion, he subs him, after taking some vicious ground and pound or something, like it's bloody or whatever, he puts him out. I think you can easily sell, and that's a rematch too, if I'm not mistaken, right? Didn't they fight very early on?
Yeah, they fought at featherweight. Holloway punched Oliveira's neck, and then this dude tapped because he couldn't breathe. He had to go to the hospital. Something happened, like a trachea or something like that.
So there you go. So you can sell the rematch. I like that at 155. Later on in their careers, both guys have gotten so much better. Yeah, that's where I'd go if you're Oliveira while you're waiting for a title. And he's still the guy. If he beats Holloway, he can easily lay claim to the the 155. That next title shot.
To be honest, I think I would do Holloway for either guy. I think that makes sense for Chandler as well, because you know what?
For sure.
He does lay it on the line. He throws it down. You're going to get an exciting fight. And I think I do like Holloway over Chandler once he just survives that first round. And he's had the chin so far. Hopefully, Topuria didn't do enough damage to stop that.
Yeah, and Chandler, man, I do want to say it's hard to say, you feel bad for these guys, right? They're athletes. They get paid pretty handsomely in most regards. But man, waited 2 years. He could have had a couple of exciting fights in the time that he was waiting for Conor McGregor. But you can't fault him, right? I mean, all of those fights wouldn't have added up to the one paycheck that he would have gotten fighting Conor. So can't blame him there. Glad he's found himself on a pay-per-view, and I'm sure they're sweetening the pot for him here to give him for his troubles, right? So I'm pretty sure they're doing right by him here.
All right, let's move on to the main event. The reason why this card is here, the comeback of both fighters, Miocic and Johnny Bones Jones. And I have to say, even though these two guys are coming back and these two guys are legends, it seems like what's dominating the storylines is not these two guys. It seems like it's the Aspinall of it all. And it seems like that, monkey on John Jones' back. Is he ducking Tom Aspinall? So, yes, we're getting these two guys fighting, Roland, but what do you make of that Aspinall saying, you know what, I'm the real heavyweight champion? Is John Jones ducking Aspinall at this point? Because it seems like he really, really wants that fight.
Most of these exchanges, I can't. It's hard for me to side with John Jones on a lot of these things because sometimes I think he's just coming from a kind of like a slanted point of view. But in this instance, I'm on his side.
Wow.
I do take his side here in the Jones versus Aspinall, case here as we're here in front of the judge. But I am with John Jones, and the reason being is because, look, he came out on his Instagram. He's like, call me a duck, call me whatever you want. Sure, he is ducking Aspinall, whatever, right? But I do agree with him wholeheartedly. It does nothing for him to fight Aspinall at this point in his career. It really does not. He's open to fighting Alex Pereira. I think everybody would love to see that fight.
I'd rather see that fight.
Everybody would rather see that fight, I think, especially if it's maybe like at a catch weight, or who knows, maybe he goes back to light heavyweight one last time to end his career, although I don't think he would, because I think he's put on that weight maybe permanently. I don't know. Don't want to discount his ability to shed that, but I think that's a more exciting fight. And I do kind of agree with John Jones in the aspect. And again, I don't side with him a lot, especially on these types of things where he's calling another guy out for being an asshole. But Aspinall, really, I don't think he has gone about this the right way with John Jones. He should have been trying to court him, and instead of kind of like discrediting his resume,
instead of egging him on,
and he should have done things in the octagon. I don't think Aspinall's been super active. Don't want to discredit, because I know he's fought through some injuries recently. I know he came off a torn ACL, so I can't talk too much there. But like Pereira, man, I mean, he just set himself up for a fight with a Hall of Famer against John Jones, and he hasn't even had to say a word about John Jones.
That's the super fight we all want to see. I mean, because we think both these guys are phenomenons, and we want to see these two matched up more than Aspinall. Because you know what you're going to get from Aspinall. Aspinall's going to take Jones down. He's the younger guy. He'll probably win.
And let me ask you this. Would you... And this is going to be hard. It's kind of like coming out both sides of my neck, because I'm going to bring something else up after I ask you. But would you rather see the fight that we're getting here or John Jones versus Aspinall?
I think I want to see this fight. I'd rather see Miocic.
Same, honestly. And this might just be two biased people here, but I would rather see this fight over a potential Jones versus Aspinall, because I know people were saying, "Hey, ditch this fight. Let's go with the Jones versus Aspinall fight." And this is obviously, it's an accommodation. I think I've heard a lot of people throughout the MMA industry say that this is obviously Dana White doing right by both guys. Both guys are Hall of Famers. This is a complete legacy fight for both guys. Like, you're not getting Stipe Miocic at 42 years old on a 3 to 4 year layoff. I don't know exactly how long it's been, to come out and fight
21.
Anybody, right? You're not going to get him to come out and fight just anybody. It has to be John Jones, right? I don't think he would have come out and fought
and he doesn't deserve to fight just anybody either, because he was the champion before he lost the belt. Like, he hasn't fought since. He didn't get a rematch. But not only that, but like, as a John Jones fan, you think of John Jones' greatest rival, Daniel Cormier, and there's always going to be parallels in their career, right? So Cormier had his battles with Stipe already. We've seen that. We've seen Cormier have his battles with Gustafsson. And John has had his battles with Gustafsson. Now it's John's turn to have his battle with Miocic. I want to see what John does against that same test that Cormier had years ago because they're the greatest rivals. And there's no need to fight them two anymore. DC's completely retired. So what's the next best thing? Let's see Jones versus DC's old rival one time. I think that's way more exciting of a sell than this young Aspinall who relatively has been new to the game because he's been hurt for the last 2 years as well.
And look, I mean, Aspinall already at his young age has done some outstanding things, right? He's already claimed throne to the title, arguably, right? Because I mean, John Jones on paper has the belt. Not going to discredit that at all. He hasn't lost it. It's just been by injury. He tore his pec in practice. Cannot take anything away from him there. But Stipe is still, in terms of all-time legacy in the heavyweight division, he's still in the top 3, top 5 heavyweights all time, right? Aspinall, he still has a little bit of work to do before he's there on that Mount Rushmore and to where he can get a guy like John Jones to fight him. So yeah.
Well, let's look at the tail of the tape a little bit here. John Jones is 5 years the younger. They're both 6'4", they're over 205. I forgot to change that. 84.5-inch reach versus 80-inch reach. 27-1. John Jones, infamously lost that one fight because of a 12-6 elbow, which is now no longer outlawed. It's now legal to do it. We've been seeing it done these last 2 weeks, and interesting ways they've taken advantage of that elbow. Roland, you mentioned that super fight against Alex Pereira. It seems like the bookies think that John Jones will have the right to call for a super fight because they have him lined up minus 695. Is that too steep, Roland, or is that a correct line that you would think should be here for this card?
Man, all things considered, I think it's the correct line. John Jones, greatest of all time, living and breathing. If he were to retire today, he'd be the greatest fighter of all time in the UFC. And Stipe's age, I know we talked about this is an exciting fight. I think I'm excited for the fight, but I do think it's lined properly. I think John Jones gets him in every aspect of the game, and he's no slouch himself. It's just that's how good John Jones is. Right. Yeah. I mean, he's just another breed. So, yeah, let's look at his last 5. Or you already.
Sorry, let me get that back.
Yeah, no, you're good.
So, Cyril Gane, submission win. That was his intro to the heavyweight division. Before that, he was in a war with Dominic Reyes, won a decision. Split decision against Thiago Santos, where he tore both of Santos' ACLs by doing those push kicks that he's known for. A win over Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, could have took the easy road out when he got kneed in the head. Said, no, we'll keep fighting. Unanimous decision to John Jones. And a win over Gustafsson. That was the second time they fought. And in the second time, he made all the adjustments needed because that first one was razor thin. They both ended up in the hospital. Second time, it was light work for John Bones Jones. Made easy work of Alexander Gustafsson. Any of these fights stand out for you? Any of these fighters are similar to Stipe or have some kind of skill set that you think that you can say it's going to be similar to this one?
Honestly, and I'm not really drawing too much on John's last 5 other than, I would say I want to see more striking, and I think we're going to get more striking in this fight. I will call back to the last one. Cyril Gane did not put up much of a fight. That was a round 1 finish.
Easy.
Right? That was a round 1 finish. I mean, relatively easy work for John Jones, not much of a test at all. Going over to Stipe, I will say, although I ultimately going to be on John Jones to win this fight, I think Stipe is going to put up a tougher fight than Cyril Gane did. As far as a prediction as I can make on Stipe for sure.
We'll move over to Stipe's last 5. His last fight was a loss to Francis Ngannou, the PFL champion, in a knockout that came in 2021, where for most of the fight, Stipe was winning with the hands and with the takedowns. But whenever you get capped by Francis, it could be lights out at any point. And unfortunately for Stipe, his knockout was a little bit of a meme, the way he landed on the back of his head like that. Win over Daniel Cormier, a knockout win over Daniel Cormier, and a loss in 2018 to Daniel Cormier, his first heavyweight loss, and a win over Francis Ngannou. So he's fought kind of the who's who in his last 5 fights, but it has been 3 years since we've seen him. 2021 against Francis Ngannou. This is Francis with the braids, I think, even at the time. That's how long ago it was, Roland.
Yeah.
So, what do you make of these last 5 fights? What kind of Stipe? What do you think we're going to see from him?
Man, I think we're gonna see a little bit of the old Stipe. We're gonna see a guy that he's gonna, he's a very skilled, I would say, for the heavyweight division, a very skilled boxer. I think he's very
Golden
good with
gloves.
his hands. I mean, he's able to get in and get out, hit you with some combinations. He's very quick. He moved a lot of head movement, I feel like, from Stipe. I think we're gonna see a lot of that. And honestly, although I did say we're going to see some more striking from John Jones, it's only because I think Stipe puts up a better fight on the ground, where I ultimately do think John Jones is going to want to get this fight. We talk about training camps all the time. This is, I mean, you don't have to do a lot of homework to see who John Jones has been training with. I mean, it's been the who's who. You're talking Gable Stevenson, arguably one of the greatest wrestlers in U.S. men's history. And then, the other guy too it's all over Instagram. That guy Gordon Ryan, he's been
Jiu-jitsu expert,
jiu-jitsu expert, and he's even going to be in the corner for him. I don't know if you saw that. I was reading that a couple minutes before we came on the pod. I saw an article on Instagram. He's going to be in his corner. He's taking the place of one of his longtime corner guys. Excited to see what John Jones is going to bring to this fight, but definitely see him taking the fight to the ground at some point.
I think you laid it out perfectly, because you do know that Stipe has the golden gloves. He's going to be the better boxer that night. But what he doesn't have that Jones has are those push kicks, the different kicks that Jones can hit. And then the fact is, when it comes to the wrestling, John Jones is a more accredited wrestler than Stipe. So he's going to have that base in his favor as well. I think we do see this fight to the ground. 2 reasons. We've seen, like you mentioned, the heavyweight, Gable Stevenson and Gordon Ryan. I think Jones is looking for a sub. And you know what? He might even do some body work on the ground, some ground and pound where he's kneeing the body back.
I was going to say, do you see John Jones maybe taking mount here at any point, maybe working that side of the ground?
I do think so, because we saw that with Cyril Gane. Like, he had no interest in keeping that standing with Cyril Gane too much. He showed enough just to say, like, hey, I can do this as well. But Jones, I think Jones wants a solid performance one more time, because he's talking about these, super fights, and he doesn't want to worry about having to defend titles anymore. So I think he wants to be done with this. I think he's looking for dominant performance. He's not going to get that standing up with Stipe, because I'll tell you what, if he just tries to box with Stipe and doesn't try to mix up the kicks, doesn't try to mix up the takedowns, Stipe will have him for lunch. That will happen. Stipe's boxing is that much better. He's a gold glove boxer. So Jones will mix up the takedowns. He will have to get him down. And I think he's going to try to do it early and often. I don't think he's going to try to stand up with Stipe too much. I think he's that much better of a wrestler than Stipe is. And I think we're going to see it.
So let me ask you this. So it looks like we're both on John Jones here. I mean, he's minus 695 favorite. But let me ask you, it's a 5-round fight, championship fight. The over-under's at 2.5. Right now, the juice is a little bit more towards the under. Do you agree with that, or do you think Stipe can?
I think the over.
See the championship rounds here.
I think we get it like in round 4. I see the over. But they must really believe in John Jones to finish this fight that fast, because he's minus 695.
He's 42. I heard, and again, this was an older guy that was making this argument, but do you think the time off has benefited him? Because you mentioned it was a vicious knockout against Francis Ngannou. Vicious, right?
Yeah.
Hey, he's taken all the time off. He
stays active. He's a fireman.
Active. Yeah, exactly. He's a firefighter, so he's always in shape, always doing stuff with his body. So do you think the time off maybe has benefited him a little bit, or do you just think it's a little too much for him to overcome to make this because it seems like you might be convinced he can take this to the championship rounds?
I think we get to round 4, so I don't think it's too much. I think he has one good one left in him, and I think we're going to see him get to at least round 4. I like the over. I do like the finish for Jones, but I think we get to round 4.
Yeah, because I could see if John Jones doesn't take, to your point, and I do agree with what you're saying, to your point, if John Jones doesn't get the fight to the ground early in like the first round. Like he lets it, be one of those fights where they're feeling each other out, striking a little bit. I do think Stipe is a quicker guy.
Yeah.
In terms of the striking exchanges, and that's the one thing though too that we haven't seen yet, and we kind of got robbed of it because of injury. Is I wanted to see how prolific of a striker, excuse me, John Jones could be at heavyweight with that
Yeah.
extra. And he has said he's come in to fight week at 236. That's his fight weight. I know we have it up here at you mentioned 205 because of the lightweight, but he's
236.
235 right now. So
Yeah.
I don't know if he plans on ballooning up, but it sounds like he might be done, and he's good at 235.
The thing about John Jones, though, man, he is the reverse Michael Chandler because the guy's all IQ. He's all
Yeah,
fight IQ. He doesn't put himself in any bad spots ever. He always fights as smart as he can fight. So I just don't see him standing up with Stipe too much. I don't think he's going to try to test himself. He has a lot of ego, but I think that's more because of his wins and outside the ring because he kind of seems to let it go once he's in the octagon. We've never really seen him say, I'm going to test the other guy at what he's best at. It's always been the smarter fighter. I just think that we're not going to see too much stand up here. I think we're going to see the takedowns pretty early.
yeah. Let's get a finish here, John. Let's get a finish.
Yeah. All right, let's move over to the last thing I want to talk about. It's Friday night. We're going to have combat sports as well on Friday night, a gimmick fight, if you will. Free on Netflix, I believe. I don't think this is a pay-per-view on Netflix. But we got the return of Iron Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. Problem child Jake Paul. 58 years old, Roland. Are you interested at all on a Friday night, taking your Friday night after work and catching Mike Tyson and Jake Paul?
Man, I was gonna say this earlier with the John Jones fight, and I can't take credit for this because I've seen this meme going around, but these are the two fights that nobody wants to happen, right? Or nobody wanted to happen, but the two fights that everybody's going to be watching. Because I mean, I will probably watch this Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight. I'm intrigued. Mike Tyson, seen some of his training videos. He still has the power. That's probably one of the last things that's going to go. Do I think he has the cardio at 58 years old to last? I know they're 2-minute rounds. I don't think so. I do agree, Eduardo. Eddie. I am worried about Tyson if this gets into the later rounds. I think his only chance, and granted, we don't have the odds up here, but I did hear a little bit earlier today. It's not that steep. Jake Paul has been favored much greater against Mike Perry. I think he was a favorite against Mike Perry. He's only like minus 250 or something. To come back on Tyson like plus 200. So they're lined pretty close. I think Mike Tyson has a chance early if he can get to him and flash some of that power, and that's what I'm going to be rooting for.
Yeah.
And that's no discredit to Jake Paul because I somewhat kind of respect a little bit what he's doing here. Obviously, he's selling fights, making a little bit of coin, picking his fights. I mean, and I can see why people are turned off by this too. Because I mean, at the end of the day,
These are legends we loved, man.
I know, but just this fight alone, Roundup, he's fighting a 60-year-old. I mean, that's really what it is at the end of the day. It's not just any 60-year-old. It's a 60-year-old that will knock just about any of us out cold. Shout out to Alan from The Hangover. He felt that too.
Yeah, he did.
And I do agree ultimately with Eddie. I think he might get put out, and it's going to be sad because he's 60.
It's someone's grandpa, bro. He's fighting somebody's grandpa. It's not right. We saw Evander Holyfield at 58 try to make a comeback, and it didn't look good. Now, granted, Mike Tyson, he fought Roy Jones Jr. in like a celebrity kind of amateur fight, if you will. He did look good for them. He won that fight, but it's another older guy. He's fighting a guy who trains every day, who's really trying to make a living off this, in Jake Paul. I think it's going to be danger. I think Jake Paul puts him out. I think Mike Tyson probably survives because they are 2-minute rounds, I believe. So Jake Paul's not going to do a lot of damage in these rounds because the clock will get cut off. But once we get to round 6, 7, and Mike Tyson can't go anymore, his legs are just bricks and cement, I think it's over.
He's not
I
gonna.
think
I
it's
don't.
over.
I mean, if it does get that to that stage in the fight, it's gonna end ugly, and it's not gonna be good.
It's gonna be like Nate Robinson, bro.
It could be worse because he's 60. Like I
Tyron
mean,
Woodley.
I
And
mean,
not only that, Roland, but they had to cancel the fight last time because he wasn't healthy enough, and it's worrisome, bro. It really is.
I mean, I just don't know, honestly. And again, maybe he proves me wrong, and I know he's way stronger than I, but I'm just saying, like cardiovascular wise, like
That's where I worry.
cardio. Like I don't know how realistic it is for him to maintain his athletic ability. Because I will say, if you watch his those training videos, I don't think they're fake. I mean, I think he's really hitting
Yeah, but
those
they're
pads.
highlights, right? So they're not
Yeah.
showing his low lights of the training.
They're highlights for sure, but I mean, dude, those punches that he's throwing,
Still got pop.
those will put people out. I mean, if he can connect, and that's the
if it's Allen,
and that's the intriguing part about this, right? Is he has flashed from his highlights. He's been putting them out for years now. It seems like since he's been maybe about like 55, he still has this power, but I mean, how is it going to translate in a fight? And fight another take. Like I don't think Jake Paul, it does not benefit to be a close fight, right? I mean, he's still trying.
It would look bad.
I mean, he's still trying to sell the allure of him being somewhat of a real boxer, right? I mean, he's still trying to do that, right? At some point or some angle here. I mean, although this fight, you introduced it, and I agree, as a gimmick fight, because that's exactly what this is. But I mean, the whole point, or not the whole point, but part of what the dude on the right here, Jake Paul's been trying to do, is prove to everybody that this is somewhat real, right? Hey, I'm fighting real guys here. But hard to argue that for this fight. But to that whole point, it would benefit him to put him out early, right? So maybe we get fireworks early and we see Mike Tyson put him out because Jake Paul's going for it too. There's a little bit of pressure here on Jake Paul because you can't let a 60-year-old guy impose his will on you. Not even
if you lose this fight. If you lose this fight, you're Jake Paul. What's next for you? You're done.
You're done. Even if it is Mike Tyson, if you let him impose his will on you and bully you,
at the end of the day, 6-year-old beat you when you were 24, 25, whatever it is.
There's no coming back from that. And that's why I do think there is some pressure here. It is intriguing. And man, I just hope Mike Tyson puts him out. And that's again, like I said, not because I dislike Jake Paul, because I don't. I like kind of what he's doing. It's entertaining. I've been watching. So
I haven't missed one yet, man.
Yeah, so obviously doing something, catching my attention. So definitely going to watch this, excited, and I'm going to be rooting for Mike Tyson. So hopefully we get a knockout here. This is so funny that this is even happening. I can't help but laugh.
Well, that's it from us, from We Talking About Sports. We'll probably see you, I don't know if Sunday, a lot going down in the Valley, so we might not see you till next Sunday. Mondo's getting married, and I'll be out of town, so I know Ben's out of town as well. So we'll see what happens, but thanks for everybody for tuning in. Peace out, baby.
Peace out.